Hello guys, TKG is here for your comfortable LostArk life. In this video, I'd like to cover one of his class engravings of the Deathblade, as the video in my channel has some old introduction and editing, so I thought it'd be great to remake it like the recent cover videos. Now follow me, I'll show you what you need. Let's start with the basic of this video. Class engraving I'm going to cover in this video is Remaining Energy Deathblade. You might be wondering, isn't the Remaining Energy blade is already on your channel? Well, actually previous build of the Remaining Energy is an instant fire Remaining Energy Deathblade. So in this video, other variation of the Remaining Energy build will be covered in this video. Well, back to the main part. Unlike the Surge, Deathblade is using the Surge as a main DPS skill. Remaining Energy Deathblade is using the Surge as an additional buff and DPS for its skill circulations. More like, I'll say, Remaining Energy Deathblade has more even DPS proportion on her skills, so it has more stability than the Surge Deathblade DPS. But unlike the variation of a build, still her combat stat build is fixed with the specialization with the critical build. Personally, for the smooth skill circulation, I suggest you to have at least more than 1770 on specialization with her build. However, there is a difference on her engraving build. As this build are covering the casting Remaining Energy Deathblade, now you need the supercharged engraving for your casting and charging skills. Not to mention you still need the Ambush Master for the back attack type skills. Also, I heard about the opinion on using the mass increase as an engraving build, but personally, if you don't have a 9/7 stone, mass increase build is not that recommended to use. And somehow it has no reason for using the mass increase unless you have a 9/7 stone for your Deathblade. So try to choose it from your preference when you decide to raise a Deathblade. Unlike the Surge Deathblade, Remaining Energy Deathblade can be more stable on the DPS circulation. More like the Surge has no insurance if you miss the Surge. Remaining Energy Deathblade has many insurance and options to choose from the skill composition. So unlike the Surge have to risk its DPS life for the Surge, Remaining Energy Deathblade can be more flexible than the Surge during the gameplay. Personally, Remaining Energy Deathblade is more intuitive than the Surge Deathblade on the skill circulations. You don't have to do the intricate calculation and adjustment and aiming. All you have to do, keep aim and fire. So personally, I recommend the Remaining Energy for the beginners. Unfortunately, just like the most stable DPS performer classes in the LostArk, if you are expecting the great damage with certain skills, this class engraving might not be suitable for you. Also, Remaining Energy has one big disadvantage: bounce back. Surge can bounce back easily, right? I mean, if you stack the arts more than 40, it will regain the whole identity bubble, right? But the Remaining Energy cannot do that, as her main DPS skills are actually related to the identity bubble supply, so if you miss that skill often, you have to pass through the long Valley of Death for sure. Core mechanic of the Remaining Energy Deathblade is, well, actually there's not many things to comment about the core of the Remaining Energy, especially the charging Deathblade. More like you can just understand it by just looking at it. So just like the identity utility classes, supply the identity and then throw everything you have is a key on the Remaining Energy charging or casting Deathblade, because the 3 bubble surge will grant you the positive buff for your DPS circulations. In more short, you have to make a 3 bubble with 1 cycle of your skills in order to make your Remaining Energy be an effective DPS performer. Composition of the Remaining Energy casting Deathblade can be summarized like this text box. As I mentioned, casting Deathblade skills has very even damage proportions. In other words, just as I said in first, you have some insurance for your DPS and skill circulations. But one thing you should keep in mind is that main DPS skills alongside with the additional skills is directly related to the identity supply. So you have to consider more about those skills as not an insurance, but an essential skill you have to make an effective hit for your identity supply. As the Remaining Energy synergy is also coming from the Surge Fire, I mean the buff that comes with the Surge, you need to be in that 3 bubble circulation for the full performance of your Deathblade. So actually the core of the Remaining Energy Deathblade is throwing everything on the Surge buff and the short Maelstrom uptime. So you need to squeeze the Blitz Rush, Soul Absorber, Void Strike in that short uptime of the Maelstrom. Skill build of the casting remaining energy Deathblade can be like this text box. Well, actually I did a lot of comment about the skills on the skill composition section, so there's not many things to comment about the skill build itself. One thing I would like to add is about the gem, about the cooldown gem. If you wish to bounce back fast, I mean if you messed up with your combo and the identity circulation, you have to bounce back fast, right? For those matters, I recommend you to have a high level of cooldown gem on the Soul Absorber, Blitz Rush, Void Strike, Maelstrom. If you have that, it can make you bounce back easily on many different and intricate situations. Of course, if you have an old level 10 cooldown gem, it doesn't need to worry about that one. But for those who cannot afford that much, I'll say you can have at least level 8 on the Void Strike, level 9 on Soul Absorber will greatly help you to bounce back. And personally, Blitz and the Maelstrom is recommended to use the level 10 for your identity circulation. Awakening skill is not actually fixed on the remaining energy Deathblade. It is more like a preference. If you wish to supply your bubbles fast, I suggest you to use the Flash Blink, or if you like to rush the DPS, use the Blade Assault on your Awakening. Both are okay to use it on every situation, so try to use it by your favor. Placing the Dark Axle is naturally increase the DPS performance, but personally I think that is quite limited to the training room dummies. It can be considered when you are decided to use the instant fire remaining energy on your Deathblade. But for the charge or casting Deathblade, removing the Dark Axle in your skill composition is not that recommended. Removing might make you hard to catch up the back and complicated sudden movements of the raid. So I suggest you to use the Dark Axle on your skill composition. Currently, the casting Deathblade skills are grouped because of the synergy. Mostly, the main DPS skills with Maelstrom are grouped. I think the most core of the remaining energy Deathblade is do the Void Strike, Soul Absorber on the Maelstrom uptime. Of course, you can change it with your flexibility like this. But one thing you need to know is that on the stagger gimmicks, you need to use the Void Strike first because the Void Strike has a damage increase to the stagger enemy. So in short, core is simple, but you have to change it with your flexibility or the circumstances you have. Well, actually these two different builds are a preference. More like if you want some stabilities, you can use this build, or if you wish to hit the ceiling, you need to use the instant remaining energy for your Deathblade. But you don't have to concern that much about the differences. DPS gap of both build is about 3%. So try to choose it with your preference or that suits well to your control. Skill combo of the casting Deathblade can be summarized like this. Actually, the combo of the casting Deathblade is quite fixed too. As I said first, you need to keep that skills always stick together for your stable damage performance. But of course you can change the combo with your flexibility. Skill combo of the remaining energy Deathblade is quite a reference, but it is something that you have to keep it. More like you need to group up the skill that suits well on your control. So try to keep in mind this base structure and then modify with your combo. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching everyone, and always thanks for your big support. Hope this video was a little help for your LostArk journey. Hope you do well with your Deathblade with this video. And of course, if you like my videos, hit the sub for more upcoming infos. I'll come back with more useful infos in the next video.